During the prime of my youth in high school, I had a girlfriend with whom I chased dreams together. I genuinely wanted to cherish her. But I ended up betraying her feelings. After being apart for over a decade, we met again at a reunion. She looked down on me with cold eyes, but fate had us meet again on the same flight days later. My name is John. Today, I am going out. I've dressed up after a long time and setting my hair in a way I'm not used to. Tonight, there's a high school reunion, and since I wasn't scheduled for work, I was able to attend. As I entered the venue, old high school friends greeted me. The star player of our soccer team back in the day still looked as fresh as ever, and the nerdy friend, who used to get all excited talking about cartoons, had transformed into a model. Some had changed, others remained the same. With a sense of wonder, I enjoyed the time spent with old friends. Man, those were the days. To be honest, my heart was racing before coming here. Felt a bit awkward since I didn't graduate with everyone. What are you talking about? We all shared those high school years, didn't we? I just realized how blessed I am to have such friends. Back then, due to certain reasons, I couldn't attend the graduation ceremony. So, attending this reunion was special, but I also felt a bit out of place. However, the words of the friends in front of me were reassuring. And just when we started getting into old stories, a late arriving woman caught almost everyone's attention. She quickly became the center of attention for both men and women. Her name is Catherine. She was the school beauty, popular among both boys and girls. She is as beautiful now as she was then, with the men waiting for a chance to talk and the women eagerly trying to strike a conversation. I was one of the many smitten by Catherine, but the moment our eyes met, she glared at me. Y'all hadn't made up yet. A friend, with a glass of booze in hand, glanced between Catherine and me. To begin with, we haven't even met until now. I replied to my friend with a wry smile. The word makeup made me think back to those days, and a heavy weight settled on my chest. As the reunion was drawing to a close, the lively hall grew even more boisterous, thanks in part to the alcohol. I had been drinking non-alcoholic beverages, so I was watching my friends from a distance with a smile on my face as they happily made noise. It's been a while, John. Then, Catherine, holding a soft drink just like me, stepped out from the crowd and approached me. Long time no see, Catherine. We exchanged slightly awkward greetings, followed by a momentary silence. You know, John, I still can't get over the fact that you bailed on that important exam. You couldn't even face us at graduation, could you? Catherine spoke with cold eyes, as if she looked down on me. Although quite some time had passed since then, I was taken aback that she still held a grudge. It made me realize just how deeply I had disappointed her. Hey John, why did you back then? Can't we just let that go? We've both moved on to new paths. Please, just forget about it. I interrupted Catherine's attempt to bring up the past, forcefully ending the conversation. Seeing Catherine's discontented face, memories of our high school days rushed back. I had always dreamt of becoming a doctor. Catherine, too, dreamt of being a nurse. We both supported each other's aspirations in the medical field. Whenever I went to the library after school, she was always there. Soon enough, we began studying together at the library, often until sunset. Before we knew it, we grew fond of each other. In our senior year of high school, I confessed my feelings, and we began dating. We'll work together in the same hospital, you as a nurse and me as a doctor. That was our big goal, our promise. But I turned down the opportunity to take the entrance exam for a renowned medical school. When questioned why, I remained silent. That day, Catherine got angry at me, accusing me of breaking our promise to make our dream come true together. Rumors started that I backed out because I was too scared and unsure if I'd pass. Now, one might guess that these rumors were sparked by someone jealous of my relationship with Catherine, but Catherine believed those baseless rumors. Disappointed at me, she graduated high school and moved on. I keep thinking about that time. Catherine, lost in thought, began to speak with her eyes lowered, but her words were drowned out by a call from some girls, not from me this time. As Catherine reluctantly walked away from me, a part of me felt relieved. Now, I could tell her about the circumstances back then, but it wouldn't change the past. So there's no need to bring it up. I don't want to disturb her feelings now. When the gathering was about to conclude, knowing I had work the next day, I quietly told my friend and left early. Months after the reunion, I kept in touch with the friends I reconnected with and even went out for drinks once. During that time, I heard that Catherine was working as a nurse at a university hospital. One of my friends had spotted her when he went to the hospital due to feeling unwell. Another friend excitedly mentioned that he had spoken to Catherine during the reunion and found out she was single, having been so ever since our breakup. "John, you should give it another shot. You two were perfect together back in high school." My friend nudged me to consider getting back with her, but remembering Catherine's cold gaze during our meeting, I could only respond with a laugh, saying I'm not in her league anymore. Now, as I recollect those moments, I'm on a plane, heading to a conference in another state. Exhausted from my hectic schedule, I planned to sleep through the 1-hour flight and put on an eye mask. "Excuse me, I need to get through." I was seated on the aisle, and it seemed I was blocking someone trying to get to their seat. I removed my eye mask in response. "I'm so sorry." "Wait, Catherine." "Hut, John." As I was about to sit next to a woman, to my surprise, it turned out to be Catherine. I never thought I'd see her again. What a coincidence. When Catherine saw me, she froze as if time had stopped, giving me a startled look. Then the in-flight announcement began, and Catherine quickly took her seat. Perhaps both of us felt awkward because for the next 30 minutes after the plane took off, neither of us exchanged a word, and time just seemed to drag on. Despite my earlier fatigue, my eyes were now wide awake. We're heading to the same state. Maybe we're attending the same training seminar. Lost in such thoughts, I was jolted when a flight attendant, looking pale as a ghost, shouted out, "Is there a doctor on board?" The plane buzzed with concern, a scene many had only seen in movies or TV shows. "I'm a doctor, I'm coming." I immediately stood up and headed towards the flight attendant. Showing my medical license, I proved my identity as a physician. The flight attendant, looking relieved, led me to an elderly man who had collapsed. "I'm a nurse. Let me know how I can help." Soon after, Catherine rushed over. She had been staring at me with wide eyes, but the sight of the elderly man on the floor turned her expression to one of urgency. "Sir, can you hear me? Do you know where you are?" I tried to gauge the elderly man's consciousness, but his response was weak. "Do you have any pre-existing medical conditions?" I instructed Catherine to turn the man on his side and began asking the family nearby about his medical history. However, it turned out the relative was his son who had been estranged for years and was now traveling with his father. Regrettably, he didn't have full knowledge of his father's medical conditions. "John, here's his medication list." Acting quickly, Catherine had gotten permission from the family to search the man's belongings and found his medication list. Hoping the regular medications might give some clues, I quickly checked its contents. Then I found it, a prescription history for a certain medicine. It was primarily a blood sugar-lowering medication used for patients with type 2 diabetes. Judging by the medication and his symptoms, it looks like hypoglycemia. I figured that the elderly man has been temporarily hypoglycemic. I asked a flight attendant for a drink containing sugar. Fortunately, the old man hadn't passed out, so with my help, Catherine poured orange juice into his mouth. After confirming he swallowed, we continued giving him more to drink slowly. Little by little, he drank it all, and after resting a bit, he started to regain consciousness. Judging there was no need for an emergency landing, I requested that an ambulance be on standby just in case, so he could be taken to the hospital immediately upon landing. "Thank you so much. You saved me. It was my first time handling something like this, so I might have made you uncomfortable. I'm grateful you trusted and followed my guidance. I didn't do any specialized medical treatment, and I don't think I did anything deserving of thanks," I replied. Still, she insisted on expressing her gratitude. The mutual thanking continued for a while, and Catherine, who was also showered with thanks, humbly responded, "I didn't do much," creating a strange scene where everyone was bowing their heads in gratitude. Relieved that everything was okay, I planned to rest up and head straight to the hotel I had booked before my training session. "John, do you have a moment?" But that plan was interrupted when Catherine called out to me. We ended up at a cafe inside the airport. They had some local delicacies, and I was torn about what to order but settled on a regular cup of coffee. Amidst the heavy silence, Catherine was the first to speak. "John, did you become a doctor?" She looked happy but also a bit sad. I replied honestly, "Yes, that's right. It took a little longer than I expected, but I finally became the doctor I always dreamed of being." Hearing about my dream being fulfilled, Catherine looked shocked and was momentarily lost for words. "But why did you decline the exam back then?" She was trying to understand everything and looking like about to panic. I decided to tell Catherine why I had declined the entrance exam to a prestigious medical school back in high school. "Catherine, the truth is, right after high school, I was hospitalized and treated for leukemia." "Leukemia? Wait, what are you talking about?" "One day, as I was preparing for my college entrance exams, I felt extremely fatigued and had a fever, so I visited the hospital. I thought I just had the flu, but what the doctor told me was shocking. I had developed acute leukemia. Knowing I had to start treatment immediately, I gave up the college entrance exams. My grades were good and I had attended enough days, so it was certain I'd graduate. The side effects of the treatment were far more severe than I had expected, and I felt cursed by my misfortune. Lying in my hospital bed, images of my friends' graduation ceremonies and their bright, shiny new lives kept flashing in my mind. Because of that, envy towards my friends naturally welled up in me. I felt as if I was the only one suffering and began to cry. I truly started to loathe myself. This endless inner turmoil slowly consumed me. I have given up on my dreams, couldn't graduate with my friends, and even lost my beloved Catherine. The sense of loss was immense, to the point where I felt devoid of any will to fight the illness. Yet, what kept me going was my memories with Catherine. I had heard rumors that Catherine passed the nursing school exams. I was overjoyed, as if it were my own achievement. Catherine would now start a new life, surely with new friendships and opportunities. I projected my own hopes onto Catherine's glittering future. Although I felt envy and conflict about many things, for some reason, when it came to Catherine's bright future, I felt nothing but genuine happiness and support for her. Knowing about Catherine's success gave me the drive to continue my treatment. At times, I felt overwhelmed by the reality that I couldn't be by her side, but knowing that Catherine was pushing through kept me going. Just that fact alone gave me the strength to persevere. In the end, thinking about her helped me break free from my negative emotions. After a long stay at the hospital, the treatments worked, and I was able to return to my regular life. But this was several years after high school graduation. Except for my family and a few close teachers, no one knew about my illness. I didn't want to be a burden during such a crucial time for my friends and Catherine. That's why, even when rumors spread, I never denied them. At a reunion later, I finally revealed my condition to my friends. They cried, saying they were glad I recovered. "Why didn't you tell me? You had to fight through this all alone." Tears streaming down her face, Catherine exclaimed this. The other customers at the cafe stared at us as if we were having an argument, but Catherine continued regardless. "I threw a lot of harsh words at you, John, saying you were cowardly, or that you ran away. I'm sorry for saying things that hurt you, especially when I didn't know the full story." "It's okay, Catherine. You didn't need to bear the burden of my illness, Catherine. I wanted you to just focus on achieving your dreams." I never expressed those feelings out loud, but I simply sat beside you and gently rubbed your back. "You know, Catherine, looking back, I'm actually glad I got sick." She looked at me as if questioning what I was saying, but it was the truth. Yes, the diagnosis was shocking and it was tough, but meeting the hematologist who treated me made me realize deep down that I really wanted to become a doctor. That doctor had a huge impact on my life. He was always genuine, never hiding anything, and never treated me like just another patient. He'd always visit my hospital room with a cheerful tone, make some lighthearted jokes, have a laugh, and then leave. At first, I was emotionally shattered and found it hard to appreciate his attitude, but eventually, his brightness became my salvation, and I began to open up. That doctor once told me, "I too was seriously ill like you, John, so I kinda know what it feels like to be in a hospital room for long hours, how lonely and anxious it can get. But now that I'm better, I wish I had enjoyed those moments more. Being sick doesn't define you. I've never pitied my patients, but I do understand how they feel. I just want to be there to support them." Hearing this, I felt determined not to give up on my dream. After getting discharged, a few years passed, and I decided to take the med school entrance exams again. I told her that I managed to pass, and after a few more years of intense studying, I'm now a budding hematologist. So, everything's worked out, and you don't need to worry about anything, Catherine. I don't want her to apologize. Even if we can't be lovers like before, since we've met again, I hope we can still be good friends. I've always only had feelings for her. She's strong-willed and cheerful. Genuine, with a determined spirit that never gives up. I've always loved that about her. Even after we broke up. I never wanted to seem clingy, so I never voiced these feelings. But I still have feelings for you, John. However, Catherine said something I hadn't expected. "I've only ever loved you, John. I dated someone else once, but I kept comparing him to you, and we broke up after just 2 days." She half-jokingly mentioned how absurd it seemed to bring up such things now. She felt deep regret for being so wrapped up in herself back then that she couldn't consider my situation. Our shared dream made it hard for her to understand why I gave up without discussing it with her. She felt angry, sad, and a profound sense of loss. Over time, that emotion turned into anger directed at me, and she apologized for taking it out on me. Hearing that, I realized that maybe not telling her about my illness was just my own selfishness. She suffered because I didn't share my situation with her. "I was so happy to see you at the reunion after such a long time, but after seeing your attitude, I regretted it when I got home. I know it might sound out of the blue, but I still love you, John. I can't help it." Standing in front of a crying Catherine, I was shedding tears too. "I'm sorry for hurting you with my ego, Catherine. If I had been honest back then, maybe we'd still be together. All I feel now is regret." Catherine shook her head in disagreement with my words. "I'm sorry, Catherine. I've always loved you." Finally, I was able to express my true feelings. Hearing me say over and over how I still loved her, Catherine covered her face with her hands and broke down crying. "After all the terrible things I said, you still love me. Of course, hating you would have been much harder for me." Caught up in our conversation, a sudden burst of applause surrounded us. We have completely forgotten that we were in a cafe inside the airport. Overwhelmed by embarrassment, Catherine and I both blushed and apologized for causing a scene. but instead of reprimands, we were showered with words of blessing and congratulations for a while. Once we were able to leave the airport, Catherine and I shared our feelings again and decided to start dating. Though I thought Catherine was here for the same conference, she had only come to meet her sister and headed in the opposite direction. I looked over at her as she turned and waved repeatedly, thinking how adorable she was, and started walking, hoping to make it to the workshop. Then we dated a lot, as if to make up for the time apart, and started living together at the 1-year mark of our relationship. I was working hard every day, putting even more effort into my job and studies, trying to become a hematologist, which had always been my goal. Catherine, too, was working hard, wanting to achieve more than she already had. Our friends, as if we had gone back in time, cheered and congratulated us warmly. For now, my leukemia hasn't recurred, and I'm living peaceful days. Knowing Catherine is waiting for me at home is the biggest motivation in my life. We're still settling down in our careers, but we're discussing getting married soon. Between us, there was one promise. It was that we'd always discuss things together no matter what. When we decided to move in together, Catherine told me that holding on to worries alone was off limits, and that's the promise we made. Whatever happens, we'll support each other. Being that kind of couple is our new goal and dream. John, I look forward to our life together. Me too, forever and always. Wait, is that a marriage proposal? Maybe. Oh, come on, I'll take that as a proposal. I happily accept. You're so pushy, Catherine, but I love that about you. I always want to be laughing by Catherine's side like this. Could it be that you're into muscles? I joked as I said this to her, who looked at my muscles and chuckled. Injured and hospitalized, I still couldn't change clothes by myself and had the assistance of the nurse in charge. You're lean but muscular, looking good. I was fluttered by her compliment and I said, watch this, attempting to flex my pecs, but it hurt and I couldn't move them, ending up being laughed at instead. Years later, I would meet the nurse who humored my playful act. My name is Kevin, 29 years old. I work as an architectural designer. Originally from a rural area, perhaps because I was used to the peace there, when I first moved to the city, I was overwhelmed by the crowds and felt out of place, but recently, I've felt more at home. In rural areas, having a car is essential, but in the city, it's often easier and more convenient to walk or take the bus. No worries about parking. My current job is about a 20-minute walk from my apartment. It's a bit of a distance, but considering I have a desk job, the walk serves as good exercise. One evening after work, just 5 minutes into my walk, I was suddenly caught in a downpour. The rain quickly intensified, so I headed to a nearby convenience store to buy an umbrella. As soon as I arrived, it began pouring cats and dogs. I was about to leave the store with my new umbrella when I bumped into someone rushing in to avoid the rain. "Oh, I'm sorry," I blurted out without thinking. However, the rough-looking man who bumped into me headed into the store, clicking his tongue. He's the one who bumped into me, but he sure has an attitude. Just then, our eyes met, and he gave me a hard stare. As I was about to continue on my way, the man said, "Wait a minute, Kevin. Do I know this rough-looking guy?" I couldn't remember him. "It's me, Bob. Don't you remember? We were in the same class in middle school." Hearing this, a faint memory returned. "Oh, Bob, right. I didn't recognize you," I said with an awkward smile. With his nearly blonde hair, clunky necklaces, and sloppy shirt, he looked nothing like the studious guy from our school days. Bob, with a delighted face, said, "Hey, long time no see, Kevin. You living around here now?" "Jay, working and living here. This is the first time I've run into someone I know around here." I couldn't help but smile, genuinely surprised. "But Kevin, you haven't changed a bit. That plain outfit, I noticed you right away." He pointed at my clothes and laughed. "Wait, plain." I instinctively looked down at my outfit. "Since we're here, let's chat for a bit. Join me for a smoke." And just like that, I ended up talking with Bob in the smoking area. "Oh, Kevin, you don't smoke. My bad." "No worries, I've got my coffee here." As we sheltered from the torrential rain, Bob lit up his cigarette, and I popped open a can of coffee. Whenever I tried to strike up a conversation, it seemed we'd lost our touch, and the talk would falter. Stuck in an awkward silence, wondering what to chat about, Bob broke the ice. "By the way, do you remember right after high school there were rumors about you just vanishing?" It was the first I'd heard such a story about myself, and I was taken aback. Bob then changed his expression and continued. "It's a shame, really. You had gotten into college on a recommendation and you were smart, but I heard your family hit hard times and you had to work out of state. I was worried when you weren't at our high school reunion. Must have been tough." "Yeah, I did move out. Just didn't see a future for myself here." It made sense. Bob and I went to different high schools, and we didn't have mutual friends, so rumors like that weren't implausible. Plus, the house I grew up in, which used to belong to my grandma, was an old single-story. People probably thought we were poor. I'd had a feeling people thought so since middle school, and it seemed Bob was one of them. "Well, I get it. Not many decent jobs around here, even with your smarts. Just having a high school diploma must have been tough. I understand if you feel a bit bitter about it." Bob looked at me with pity, but I wasn't just a high school grad, nor had I moved just for work. I'd always been interested in architecture, so I decided to pursue it at a university abroad where they taught cutting-edge methods. I was also good at Spanish and wanted to improve it even further. After honing my language skills, I attended that university for 4 years. Because I was abroad the whole time, I couldn't even attend our coming-of-age ceremony. I thought of telling Bob this, but I remembered he always seemed to have a beef with me in middle school. Although he had good grades, often just behind mine, it probably irked him that I kept nudging ahead, even if by a small margin. I never really paid him much mind, but for Bob, I was probably a constant thorn in his side. If he learned I'd been studying abroad, knowing Bob, he might just get jealous and bitter again. I didn't want to pour cold water on our reunion. Before I knew it, our conversation had veered off course. "By the way, Kevin, are you married yet?" "Nah, still single. Actually, don't even have a girlfriend right now." I was worried he might tease me, but Bob's face brightened up. "Well, look at you, still lonely. Hey, I often organize a party. I'll invite you next time. I can easily round up some cute girls. Let's swap numbers," Bob said, offering his cell phone. I wasn't too keen, but turning him down felt wrong, so I exchanged numbers. That's how, after more than a decade, my friendship with Bob resumed. I often felt like I was just making up the numbers, but Bob would frequently check in and invite me to mixers. The other guys invited were all easygoing, and I was mostly the wingman. I might not always keep up with their energy, but I didn't mind these events. I was content just listening. Then, on one of those mixers, "Sorry, Kevin. 2 guys canceled for tonight." I arrived at the bar early, and Bob made an apologetic gesture. Now with a 2-on-4 situation, I wondered how the night would pan out. Soon after, the girls arrived. "Sorry we kept you waiting, Bob. We've told everyone it's 2-on-4. Let's just have fun and treat it like a dinner party. Don't worry about it, just eat and drink," the organizer from the girls' side suggested, and the other 3 women all nodded in agreement. All of today's members are said to be nurses. I'm impressed that Bob always managed to organize it so that every woman who came was always beautiful or super cute. Even today, I think there are some pretty ladies around. Glancing at them, one girl catches my eye immediately. It's not just that she's my type, she's exceptionally cute. Sure, there have been many beautiful girls before, but none that have caught my attention like this one. However, I feel like I've seen her somewhere before. While I'm wondering if it's just my imagination, introductions suddenly start. Bob and I go first. We simply share our names, ages, and mention that we were middle school buddies. The women's introductions go similarly, but when I hear the name of the girl I've been curious about, it jogs my memory. Amanda. Wait, could she be? I think that, but I can't be sure. Although curious. It's a common name, but she does look familiar. While thinking all this, I end up just listening and occasionally glancing at her without initiating any conversation. Even though there are only 2 men, including Bob, I, not being much of a talker, find it hard to start conversations. Thankfully, the ladies initiate topics, and one of them seems to be good friends with Bob, keeping everyone laughing and entertained. I join in the laughter and nod in agreement from time to time. However, with no other men around today, my quietness is quite noticeable. Man, this guy is always so quiet and boring. Even back in middle school, he'd just study all the time. He's always been a quiet, dark sort of guy. A tipsy Bob says, laughing and poking fun at me. Really? Well, he's still better than you. The lead woman snaps back at Bob, making everyone laugh. But a drunk Bob, getting carried away, begins to blabber on about me. You know, this guy lived in a super rundown house. You know those old-fashioned bungalows? Seriously, it really what is poor. I wonder how he lived there. He was smart, but because of his family's financial situation, he went to work right after high school. Didn't even show up for our graduation. I was worried, but then I ran into him the other day. Bob spoke of me in a mocking manner, enjoying every bit. I could have chimed in and said, no, that's not true, but honestly, telling the truth in this situation might have upset the drunken Bob even more. So, I just played it cool with a polite smile and let Bob carry on with his story. I always thought it was a waste. His grades were almost at my level. Well, my family had money, so I went to a prestigious university. In the end, I've done better. I'm the star player at my company, on the fast track to success. Just being a grad from a famous university has its perks. Haha. Bob kept on, each comment more belittling than the last, clearly too drunk. Enough already. Just thinking about it makes me feel pathetic for not speaking up, but when someone's as drunk as Bob is now, it's hard to handle him. Still, Bob seems to be in quite a playful and mischievous mood today. Exasperated, I decided to excuse myself saying, I'll be right back, need to use the restroom, and left my seat. Bob's being such a handful today. On my way out of the restroom, I bumped into a lady named Amanda who was telling the waitress, sorry, can I add 2 more of those to my order, please? Oh, hello there. She noticed me, smiled warmly and said, hey, I tried to reply casually, but ended up being awkward about it. Seeing my reaction, Amanda chuckled. Hey, Kevin, do you remember me? We met a few years ago. Amanda looked at me as if testing my memory. I thought so. You look familiar, and when I heard your name, it rang a bell, but I couldn't place it right away. Thank you for everything back then. I gave a nod of appreciation, making Amanda chuckle again. Oh, I just remembered. I was startled by Amanda's sudden exclamation. About what Bob said earlier, about you being a high school graduate, isn't that wrong? You had just graduated the university and started working at that time, right? I was surprised she remembered. Of course I remember. Never underestimate a nurse's memory. She said with a laugh. So, did you achieve your dream of becoming an architect? Yeah, I did. She clapped her hands in joy and said, that's great. Congratulations. 5 years ago, I was walking to work when I got involved in a traffic accident. It was a collision between 2 cars, and the impact caused one of the cars to veer onto the sidewalk, hitting me. I was immediately taken to a nearby hospital. After some x-rays, it was found that I had a broken leg and a cracked rib. Though I had hit my head pretty hard and was out for a while, I made a steady recovery. After a leg surgery and some rehab, I was good as new. Amanda was the nurse who looked after me during that time. Even behind a mask, she was undeniably beautiful. The first time I saw her, for a brief moment, the pain seemed to vanish. Of course, that's an exaggeration, but she was so kind to me that I thought she was like an angel. Being a nurse, it might be expected of her to be kind to patients. However, when she would say things like "you're getting better little by little," and cheerfully engage me, or make small talk during 4 changes or blood draws, those moments, brief as they were, brought joy to my otherwise monotonous hospital stay. "Time to get changed, Kevin," said Amanda, appearing with a fresh set of clothes. "It's still hard for you to do it alone, so I'll help you out." She gently wiped my body with a towel and assisted me in changing. Then Amanda giggled and said, "You know, what is it?" Not sure what was amusing, I found myself laughing along. "You have some impressive muscles," she remarked, laughing softly. "Oh, these, well, I do go to the gym. I've always been skinny, and given my job, people tend to see me as frail, so I wanted to appear a bit stronger." It was one of the rare moments someone complimented my physique, and it made me feel proud. "Oh, really? What's your job that people see you as frail?" Still chuckling, Amanda asked. "I'm an architectural designer, still a rookie though. I had just started working after graduating when I got into this accident. I can't wait to get back and prove myself." Hearing this, Amanda said, "Wow, that's amazing. You have to keep pushing then." Looking at her laughing joyfully, I playfully asked, "Do you have a thing for muscles by any chance?" "Lean but muscular is quite attractive," she replied with a shy smile. "See, check this out," I said, attempting to show off, but I have completely forgotten about my cracked rib. "Ouch. Guess I overdid it." I grimaced in pain, placing a gentle hand on my rib. Amanda laughed and said, "You shouldn't push yourself too hard." Though it was a short interaction, I really enjoyed our conversation. "You've come a long way. Keep up with the rehab and let's work hard," she said, before moving on to her other tasks. After that day, Amanda wasn't my attending nurse anymore. I heard she was transferred to another department due to staffing shortages. I wished I could have gotten closer to Amanda, thinking that as I went through my remaining days in the hospital. Eager to get discharged and get back to work, I was working hard on my physical therapy. While moving from my room to the rehab room, I kept aimlessly wandering around hoping to bump into her. Hoping by chance to see Amanda, but never did. Yet, whenever I remembered Amanda complimenting my muscles, I felt motivated, not just with the usual therapy, but in my room. I secretly worked out, ensuring my arms wouldn't lose strength until my discharge. In the end, I never saw Amanda after that day and buried my feelings for her. But now, 5 years later, those feelings were awakened. "You still look so fit." Maybe Amanda was a bit tipsy as she laughed, touching my biceps. "When I heard your name today, it sounded familiar, but couldn't quite place it. Back then, you had so many bruises on your face and brown hair, right? Now it's black, and you seem more gentlemanly." Then I remembered the slim yet muscular guy. With that, Amanda showed her brightest smile of the day. As our conversation drew to a close, she said, "Let's get back to our seats," and we returned together. "Hey, where have you been? You took forever." It seemed like Bob, maybe even more drunk than before, was swaying with glazed eyes. From the looks of it, the other women were slightly put off, perhaps tired of his constant complaints and bragging. "Kevin is so darn slow." Bob seemed about to go off on another tangent, but Amanda quickly started a conversation with me. "By the way, Kevin, do you also design places like this?" What kind of design? What are you guys talking about?" The others, now curious, all turned to look at me. "Yeah, sometimes I do." "So you've become a full-fledged professional," Amanda said with a pleased expression. "Wait, Amanda, how do you know that?" "What do you do for a living, Kevin?" as everyone started asking questions. Amanda jumped in. "He's an architectural designer." Immediately, the other women began bombarding me with questions. What projects I was working on, which buildings I'd been involved with, which company I was working for, and I answered each in turn. When I glanced at Bob, his drunkenness seemed to have completely worn off, and he sat there, mouth agape, frozen in shock. Well, that's expected. To think that the guy he deemed beneath him was actually working at a major architectural firm. Conversations also touched upon college, and Bob found out that I had studied abroad. Despite his earlier boisterousness, Bob was so shocked he couldn't find his words. After a while, one of the women said, "By the way, haven't you guys noticed? Kevin's muscles are amazing." Really? I was a bit curious about that too. The atmosphere got livelier. "Didn't you say you could flex your chest muscles?" Amanda exclaimed. "Oh, I want to see. And let me touch it too." Everyone was eager, and when they saw the twitching motion, all the women, including Amanda, cheered with joy. Suddenly, I was the center of attention, while Bob was left out, looking sulky. It was the first time I had ever been in the spotlight like this, and honestly, it felt great. As we were about to leave, the female organizers said, "Can we get the check, please?" to the waiter. However, the waiter smiled and replied, "It's already been taken care of." Everyone was surprised and asked, "What do you mean?" I shouted, "Tonight's on me." Although I do think it's simple-minded of me to be pleased by the attention, it was the most fun gathering I've had, so I generously paid in advance. Everyone tried to decline my offer, but in the end I insisted, "I really want to treat everyone today," and they gratefully accepted. After that day, Bob never invited me to another party. He hasn't contacted me, and I haven't reached out either. However, the bright side is that after that gathering, I managed to exchange contact details with Amanda. Amanda was cute back then, but she's even more adorable now. With newfound confidence in her nursing career, she looked even more radiant. On our second date, I thought it might be too soon but said, "I want you to be my girlfriend." Fortunately, she said yes. Given that both Amanda and I were considering marriage, things progressed smoothly, and we're set to tie the knot as we approach our 30s. That day, when I randomly met Bob, I honestly found it a bit of a hassle, but if I hadn't met him, I might never have reconnected with Amanda. Even though he teased me a lot, I'm grateful to Bob for that reunion with Amanda. Life's pretty great now. My career's going well, and I've successfully become a licensed architect. It feels like all my hard work has paid off. With that success, I'm also drawing a more than decent salary. One of my dreams is, of course, to build a happy home with Amanda, but I'm also dreaming of setting up my private practice one day. Amanda, on her part, wants to continue her nursing job. We hope to support each other throughout our lives and eagerly await the day we become a family.